Welcome to November. This is just a quick update, hence standing up. Halloween costume is still here, but I wanted to update you because look what's here. In case you missed my last installment, I have been working on this crochet ripple blanket, and I bought this paint box yarn years ago from Lovecrafts because it was cheap. Because it's cotton, I basically didn't really know what to do with it, and I've tried various things. I've just found it really unpleasant to knit with. So I thought I'd make a crochet blanket. However, I was over ambitious and made it incredibly wide enough to go on my double bed, and so it ended up about this wide. So I've had to buy more yarn to finish that blanket. But it's here now, so hopefully that means I can crack on. And it really didn't take very long to use up 20 balls of wool with that crochet project, so hopefully this will be gone soon. The other thing I've been working on, continuing on with various other projects from last month, that lace in the round 2-ply blouse, but that's downstairs. I've just cast on for the sleeves, but I've also, my new upstairs knitting project is a vintage one. It's this one, these Weldon's pretty gloves, and I am making these with the cables and the flowers, and I'm making it in some beautiful silk merino. That is not the colour that this is in real life, it's much pinker. I'll have to play with my settings and see if I can't get it to pick it up better. But these gloves, unlike the previous gloves I made, these gloves are actually knit flat, and then you can probably see the fingers are seamed up, which is pretty common for vintage patterns. They use double pointed needles to not knit things in the round. But also personally, having just knit a pair of gloves in the round, including the fingers, those tiny circumferences for the fingers on double pointed needles are generally not pleasant or fun, and you know, it's horrid. So I actually think I prefer this way, although could have knit the hand in the round. Anyway, quite pleased with how these are coming along. They're so soft, they're going to be beautiful to wear. But as of yet, nothing to add to the tally. That's all for now, just a quick update. I will see you soon. November's a really busy month for me, so I hope I actually get some footage. See you soon. So it's actually taken me a really long time to get my head back in gear to think about knitting and about stash busting. I think the last time I spoke to you would have been the beginning of November, and I have done basically nothing towards my stash busting project in that time. Had a lot of other things on. I had a big IRL job I worked on. That finished at the end of November, and then I've been working on this very involved both sewing and video project in Claude where I'm making a 1940s suit. So I just haven't done any knitting. I mean, I've done a little bit on a couple of works in progress, the crochet blanket, for example, and my 1840s shawl. I've done a few rows of that, but the thing with those projects is they are both so repetitive, the progress is barely noticeable. However, I have managed to finish the knitting of this pattern, this 1940s lace jumper that I was working on. You might remember from the previous installment, I was taking this pattern, which is knit flat, and trying to make it work as a pattern in the round. Now, there's always a point where you have to knit flat. You know, you can knit the body in the round, but you have to knit this section, and like the sleeve caps, for example, we have to knit flat. So it wasn't entirely in the round, but I did a lot of the main work of this in the round, which made it much more enjoyable and I think a bit faster as well. And I did try and be really clever and do short row shaping at the shoulders so that I could do a really smooth decrease and have a really nice smooth shoulder line, and then do a 3-needle bind off or grafting or something to get a really nice shoulder join. However, that turned out to be an absolute nightmare with the loose gauge, the circular needles I was using, you know, it just wasn't working out. So I ended up just casting off and seaming it up. And I think I got quite a neat seam. I'm pretty pleased with that. So this is what I've got at the minute in terms of the body. So it was knit in the round to the armholes and then divided to knit the armholes, seamed at the shoulders to knit the neckband. The neckband was knit in 2 halves, so I've got a seam there as well. I think I contemplated trying to knit the neckband in the round, but I decided it was too much, so I just knit it flat and seamed it as part of the shoulder seam, as was given in the 1940s instructions. So this is where we are. and then I have 2 sleeves. For speed, I try to knit the sleeves 2 at a time in the round, which I do know how to do. It always takes me a while to remember how to set it up, but there was something about a combination of, one of the things about my interchangeable circular needles that I'm noticing is that the cables are not as flexible as the cheap ones I usually use. So for things like doing magic loop, it's kind of a bit more cumbersome, and that's what I found when I was trying to knit the sleeves 2 at a time in the round. It was just, oh God, it was really difficult to start off. So what I decided to do was to knit the rib flat. So you can see I've got like a weird vent here. That's because I knit the rib section of the sleeves flat and then joined it in the round 2 at a time for the lace section, which as it turned out only ended up being about 20 rows in the round, and then I had to knit the entire sleeve cap flat. But then working 2 at a time, it worked, and that was one of the things. I'm really glad I spent all the effort trying to make it work 2 at a time, because doing the lace patterns 2 at a time was really good to make sure everything was the right length and the right number of repeats and all of that. So part of me wishes that I filmed it and showed it to you, but honestly it was so frustrating and I was so busy and stressed, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I'm sorry about that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to seam this up and steam block it with you now so that you see sort of a bit more how this works. Okay, so I still have a very messy desk from Claude, so I'm sorry about that, you'll have to bear with me. So the thing, of course, about knitting these in the round is that it's going to make blocking them a lot more difficult. Because it's a lace pattern, it really needs a good block to make the lace behave nicely and sit nicely. And so ideally, I would wet block and pin this out so that it really blooms. However, it's winter in England, therefore it will take 3 years to dry. And also, I don't know how I'd make that work like this in the round. So I've got a spray bottle here full of water. It's not multi-purpose cleaner, it's water. I filled it up myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a spritz. And then I've got my iron. It's probably a touch hot. Let's turn it down just a touch. And then a pressing cloth. This is, if you have been following along with Claudemus, this is a panel of my deconstructed skirt toile. And then I'm going to give it a press. You can see the moisture's coming through a bit there. And this is what the vintage instructions say to do. Press the knitting except ribbing with a hot iron over a damp cloth. So that's essentially what I'm doing, although my cloth is not damp, my fabric is damp, but. And this should just stop the edges curling in, make the lace behave a bit nicer, that sort of thing. So for this bit that's joined up, I'm going to use my sleeve board and then avoiding the ribbing. Okay. Let's see if making it damp, using a damp cloth as opposed to spritzing the fabric makes any difference. Not really. I mean, I don't think this is as successful as wet blocking it would be, but needs must. Actually, that was so successful using the sleeve board. I think that's what I'm going to do for the bodice as well. And I think it is better to wet the cloth than the knitting. It just means it's less water, so that this dries quicker. Riveting content, Claude. It's like watching paint dry. Okay, so it's all pressed now and it's looking okay. You can kind of see the lace pattern a bit better, and you can see at the bottom where I wasn't pressing it exactly, it is a bit more bubbly than up here, but I'll live with that. Now, first things first, I have to seam up the bottom section of the ribbing for the sleeves, and then I've got to set the sleeves into the armholes. Now, as you can probably see, that's a very long sleeve, deep sleeve head. So I'm imagining it doesn't actually look like there's any kind of gathering, but I think possibly I've made my sleeves much longer, yeah, oops, than my armholes. Yeah, definitely. So it looks like we'll be doing gathered sleeves. Not part of the original design, but you work with what you've got. So I think I'm going to do this very simply. That one should do it. I'm going to use my end. I'm just going to go through half a stitch either side and sort of ladder stitch it up. It's one of those things, it's going to be on the underside of my arm. Nobody's really going to see it, are they? I'm not that bothered. So long as it's not really bulky and it'll annoy me, I don't really care what it looks like. This is where I put a disclaimer. This is not a tutorial. I'm probably doing this wrong. I know, I'm sort of whipping it together, but I know people get really prissy about, oh, you've got to use a mattress stitch or whatever. No, you don't. If you've seen the inside of historical knitted garments, they sewed it up whichever way was best, whichever way was strongest. And also they often didn't come with instructions for sewing up, so they did whatever their mother taught them, you know, or whatever they learned at school. Got a bit of a funny moment there, but oh well. See, that looks all right. It'll be fine. I'm going to take this through to the wrong side and then weave this end in. Thing is, with such a loose gauge, it's kind of difficult to weave ends in because it adds so much bulk. Can't really hide that extra bulk easily. And then same again. Oh, do you know what? I'm quite pleased with that. I think that looks quite good. Ta-da! Virtually invisible, I reckon. Okay, maybe not quite, but good enough. So now we've got to get them into the armholes. If you watch my sewing videos, you've probably seen my very detailed tutorial about how to sew sleeves. And so I basically do exactly the same thing for knitted sleeves. Of course, I don't have an underarm seam to match up on these. There. Do we think is the center? You can't see what I'm looking at. There, I think, is the middle of the increases, yep. So I'm going to match those up, and I use these large, they're firstly large in like diameter of the pin, but also they've got these flower heads, or heart heads in this case. Now, ideally, I should turn the jumper inside out over the sleeve. So I'm just going to roughly pin it around. Okie dokie. Right, that's quite a lot. Okay, so here's what's gone wrong. So the instructions for the front and the back say to work the armholes until they are 7 inches. Now, mine are not really 7 inches. I obviously measured it wrong. But even so, 7 inches would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pattern repeats at my gauge. Now the instructions for the sleeves tell you to work 11 pattern repeats before the shaping. So I think that's from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, yeah. So I'm only 3 pattern repeats short, and I think my gauge is a little different as well. So this armhole depth is like 9 inches, which might be design-y to fit into 7 inches, which would be a bit more realistic than trying to fit it into 6 inches. So basically, do you know, I thought I had a lot of yarn left. Looks like I'm going to have to do some sweater surgery here and take this apart. And I don't know how, oh my God. Oh. So can you believe it? That means this project isn't finished, which means I can't count the yarn I've used towards my de-stash total. Firstly, because I don't know how much there will be, because I need this to repair this and make it work. So the total for November is 0. I've used 0 skeins of yarn. That's it. Nothing is done, nothing. And also, because I didn't do any knitting in December, the total is 0. So I think it was 161.5 at the beginning of November, and it's still 161.5. That's just the way it goes sometimes, isn't it? I'm really pissed about this. Oh my God, this is so annoying. I have a choice here. I can rip this out straight away, start work on it, make this my work in progress, and just smash it out, you know, and get it done. However, I'm so emotional about it, I suppose. Not emotional like, ugh, but so angry, really, and frustrated. I don't think it's a sensible thing to start unpicking what is quite a delicate lace pattern when my instinct is to set the whole thing on fire, you know? I think I need a little distance from it before I start fixing it and taking it apart. So I think it's going to get confined to the UFO pile. Ugh, I've got so many works in progress on the go as well. I feel really bad about this, but I just want to cast on something completely different, completely new. And they say knitting's relaxing. Well, I guess that's all for this month. I don't know how I'm going to approach unpicking this. I will probably put in a rescue line or something. It's probably not that much work to make it better, so it should actually not take me very long to fix it once I get round to it. But not today, Satan. Well, that's it. That's the video. Doesn't always go your way. Just keep plodding along. Thanks for watching. See you next time.